with like 2 minutes to go. She needed to, she needed, I think it was like 6 points and 3 rebounds, and she went and caught like 2 me-bounds, and then immediately goes at Victoria Saxton 3 times in a row.
That clip you just heard? That's not the whole story. Not even close. What you're looking at right there is the moment everything changed for Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky organization. And what I've uncovered about what really happened behind closed doors is going to blow your mind. I'm Jax Riley, and I've been following the digital breadcrumbs on this story for weeks now, filtering through the noise to get to the real signals. And let me tell you something, that Clipboard incident wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment outburst. It was the culmination of a systematic organizational failure that the Chicago Sky's front office is desperately trying to bury. Because here's what the mainstream media won't tell you. Angel Reese didn't just snap at her coaches, she exposed a toxic coaching culture that's been brewing in Chicago all season long. And now the organization is in full damage control mode, trying to paint her as the problem when the real issue runs much deeper. If you want to understand what's really happening in the WNBA, not just the surface-level drama, but the actual power dynamics and organizational politics that drive these storylines, then you need to stick around for this deep dive. And if this kind of insider analysis is what you're here for, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to pull back the curtain on one of the most misunderstood situations in recent WNBA history. So let's start with what everyone saw. July 22nd, Chicago Sky versus Minnesota Lynx. Fourth quarter, team down big, frustrations boiling over. Angel Reese, clearly heated about what she perceived as biased officiating, reaches over and smacks the clipboard out of her coach's hands during a timeout.
Look, Angel Reese got to be the worst basketball player ever. She's the worst basketball player ever. Like, do y'all guys don't understand this?
Now, on the surface, that looks undefensible, right? Disrespectful, unprofessional, the kind of behavior that gets you benched or worse. And that's exactly the narrative the organization wanted you to focus on. Angel Reese's attitude problem, her lack of respect for authority, her toxic behavior. But here's where it gets interesting. I've been connected with sources close to the Chicago Sky organization, and the temperature of the online conversation among team insiders suggests a completely different story. One that starts weeks before that clipboard ever hit the floor. The story begins with what I'm calling the silent treatment protocol. According to multiple sources within the organization, and I want to be completely transparent here, these are unofficial channels, people connected to the team who've been watching this situation unfold. There's been a systematic effort by the coaching staff to marginalize Angel Reese's voice in team meetings and strategic discussions. Now, officially, nobody's going to confirm this. The organization has circled the wagons, put out all the right public statements about supporting their players and working through challenges internally. But if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, if you read the signals in press conferences and post-game interviews, a different picture emerges. Let me break down what I've uncovered. Starting in early July, after a particularly rough stretch where Reese was accumulating technical fouls and getting into on-court confrontations, the coaching staff allegedly implemented what sources describe as a communication restriction policy, essentially limiting when and how Reese could address officials during games, when she could call timeouts, and even how she could communicate with teammates during crucial possessions.
In the entire WNBA and Angel Reese in garbage time. We saw it. Angel Reese last year against the Fever with like 2 minutes to go.
See that technical foul accumulation? That wasn't just Angel Reese being hot-headed. According to my sources, it was the direct result of mounting frustration with what she perceived as inconsistent officiating, combined with her own coaching staff's refusal to advocate for her with the referees. The temperature of the online conversation among former WNBA players and coaching staff from other teams suggests this is more common than you'd think. When organizations start losing confidence in a player, whether it's because of performance issues, personality conflicts, or external pressure, they often begin implementing these subtle control mechanisms that are designed to manage the situation. But here's what makes Angel Reese's case different, and this is where the conspiracy gets really deep. The timing of these restrictions coincided perfectly with some of the most intense negative media coverage of her career. Think about it. You've got a player who's breaking rebounding records, putting up double-doubles consistently, becoming one of the faces of the franchise, but simultaneously, there's this coordinated negative content ecosystem targeting her every move, turning every mistake into a viral moment, every confrontation into a character assassination.
Chicago Sky, y'all stink, bro. Y'all, look, there's trash and then there's trash. You know what I'm saying? But look, man, the Chicago Sky got destroyed by the stud buds. Everybody watches the stud buds. Shout out to Courtney Williams and Tisha Eiderman, man. Listen, stud buds stood on business today. Nafisa Collier stood on business today. They destroyed the Chicago Sky.
And instead of the organization standing behind their player, protecting her from the noise, creating space for her to develop and grow, they start implementing these control measures that essentially validate the criticism. They're treating her like the problem instead of addressing the real issue, which is a toxic media environment that's actively trying to destroy her confidence and reputation. Now, let's get into rumor territory. Nothing is officially confirmed, but the online chatter is too loud to ignore. Multiple sources suggest that the Clipboard incident was preceded by a heated exchange during that same timeout, where Angel Reese confronted the coaching staff about their lack of support, specifically around officiating disputes and media representation. The allegation, and again this is rumor reported through unofficial channels, is that Reese told the coaching staff something along the lines of, "You're more concerned about your own reputations than defending your players," and that the Clipboard smack was actually her response to being told to keep quiet and play basketball. If that's true, and I want to emphasize the if here, because we're dealing with secondhand information, then suddenly that Clipboard incident looks very different. It's not just a player having a tantrum, it's a player reaching a breaking point after weeks of feeling unsupported and silenced by their own organization.
Thought she was turning her season around. Just when I thought Angel Reese was graduating from pretend basketball player to make-believe basketball player, the level where it's almost believable that Angel Reese is a basketball player. Just when I thought Angel Reese would pull through in the clutch and do America a favor. With a win last night against the Minnesota Lynx, Angel Reese would have become the most popular player in the WNBA.
Look at the body language in that clip. Look at how their teammates react. Quinnerly Dallas immediately steps in, not to restrain Reese, but to create space, to diffuse the situation. That's not the reaction you see when a player is just acting out. That's the reaction you see when teammates understand the frustration, when they've been watching the same organizational dysfunction play out behind closed doors. And here's where the conspiracy gets even deeper. Within 48 hours of that incident, the Chicago Sky organization was already in full media spin mode. Press releases about addressing internal conflicts, statements about maintaining team standards, interviews with coaching staff emphasizing their commitment to player development and accountability. But reading between the lines, filtering through the official statements to get to the actual signals, what you see is an organization that's more concerned about protecting their brand than understanding why their star player felt silenced and unsupported. The official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs through social media interactions, teammate responses, and even the timing of certain roster decisions, you start to see a pattern of organizational damage control that prioritize optics over actual problem solving.
Bruh, come on, man. Y'all gotta stop. Y'all gotta stop, yo. Y'all gotta stop.
That confrontational behavior everyone loves to criticize, those technical fouls, the on-court altercations. I've been analyzing the game footage, the referee reports, the context around each incident, and what emerges is a player who's been systematically isolated by their own organization while facing unprecedented external pressure. Think about the psychological impact of that situation. You're a professional athlete dealing with unprecedented external pressure and negative coverage. Instead of your coaching staff creating a protective environment and going to bat for you with officials and media, they start implementing control measures that essentially communicate you're the problem, not the environment.
Win last night. Angel Reese would have surpassed the Rue from Waterloo in popularity.
That's not player development, that's organizational failure, masquerading as discipline. But the story doesn't end there, because what happened in the days following the Clipboard incident reveals just how deep this conspiracy goes, and how the Chicago Sky organization has been working overtime to control the narrative. So what's fact and what's speculation? Let's break it down. We know for certain that Angel Reese smacked that clipboard. We know she's accumulated technical fouls throughout the season. We know there have been multiple on-court confrontations and heated exchanges with officials. But what we're not getting is the context, the systemic patterns, the organizational responses, the timing of certain decisions, the way information gets leaked, spun, and weaponized to support specific narratives. Official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs through similar situations across different teams and different seasons, you start to see consistent patterns of organizational behavior.
Reese had 9 turnovers. Yo, listen, y'all gotta stop with this point forward foolishness, man. Let's take a look, man. Hold on, man. Y'all be wildin', son.
That prioritize brand management over player support, control measures disguised as accountability, media manipulation framed as transparency, systematic isolation presented as team standards. And when players finally reach their breaking point, when they smack clipboards, accumulate technical fouls, or have confrontational moments, those reactions get used as evidence that the organizational approach was justified all along. It's a self-perpetuating cycle that destroys players while protecting institutional reputations. And Angel Reese's situation in Chicago is a perfect case study of how this system operates. So what's the end game here? What does the Chicago Sky organization actually hope to accomplish through this systematic undermining of their own player? I've been analyzing the organizational incentives, the financial considerations, the long-term strategic positioning, and what emerges is deeply troubling because it suggests that in some cases, organizations would rather sacrifice individual players than address the systemic issues that create toxic environments. Angel Reese represents everything that makes certain front offices uncomfortable: authenticity over media training, passion over compliance, individual expression over institutional control. And when the organizations face that tension between financial value and institutional control, they often choose systematic suppression over adaptive management. They'd rather diminish the asset than modify their approach to accommodate different personality types and leadership styles. That's exactly what the digital breadcrumbs suggest happened in Chicago. Rather than creating systems that could harness Angel Reese's passion and authenticity productively, the organization chose control measures that inevitably led to conflict, then used that conflict as justification for their approach.
Lads, Angel Reese is currently about to be suspended. She has 7 technical fouls on the season. And if this was last season, in a 44-game season, she would have already been suspended. She would have already been suspended. And it is genuinely one of the funny things about this is that her fans are arguing that none of the texts are warranted.
It's a self-perpetuating cycle that destroys player-organization relationships while creating the appearance of professional accountability and institutional stability. And the media manipulation component ensures that public perception aligns with organizational narratives rather than player experiences. But here's the thing about conspiracies: they only work when everyone involved maintains the same version of events. And in Angel Reese's case, there are too many witnesses, too much documented evidence, and too many people who understand what really happened for the official narrative to hold up under scrutiny. The temperature of the online conversation among players, media professionals, and organizational insiders suggests that this situation has become a case study in how not to handle strong personalities and authentic leadership styles in professional sports environments. And that brings us full circle to why this story matters beyond just Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky. Because what we're looking at is a systematic approach to player management that prioritizes institutional comfort over individual development, compliance over authenticity, and narrative control over genuine problem-solving. Organizations that operate this way don't just harm individual players, they harm the entire ecosystem by creating environments where authentic personalities get suppressed, where passionate competitors get labeled as problems, and where systematic issues get reframed as individual accountability failures. The Angel Reese situation exposes all of these dynamics in real time, providing a window into organizational cultures and decision-making processes that usually remain hidden from public view. So here's my final question for you. Knowing what we now know about how this situation has been handled, how much of the criticism and controversy around Angel Reese has been organic, and how much has been systematically manufactured and amplified by organizational and media incentives that have nothing to do with her actual performance or character? Because that's ultimately what this investigation reveals, that the line between authentic criticism and manufactured controversy is much blurrier than most fans realize, and that organizational interests often drive narratives in ways that have profound impacts on individual careers and reputations. What's your take on all of this? Do you think Angel Reese was justified in her frustration with the coaching staff? Do you see similar patterns in how other organizations handle controversial players? And most importantly, what do you think needs to change in professional sports to create healthier player-organization relationships? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And if this kind of deep dive analysis into the stories behind the stories is what you're looking for, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because there are a lot more layers to uncover in the evolving landscape of professional women's basketball. And hey, if you found this investigation valuable, share it with someone who follows the WNBA closely, because these conversations about organizational accountability and player advocacy are conversations the entire community needs to be having.